What's up guys, I hope you're all well. Welcome back to yet another video on the channel. Today I'm going to be ranking my top 5 Alton Towers roller coasters. Now this of course doesn't mean that any of these rides I hate. This is my top 5, so whatever lands at number 5 isn't necessarily the ride I like the least at Alton Towers, but it's the one of my top 5 that just didn't make it a little bit higher. So it's going to be an interesting video today because I love these rides like they're my children, so picking which ones I'm going to have in my top 5 is a very difficult thing to decide. And of course there's not just roller coasters in this list, which means I've had to kind of cull a few of the roller coasters at Alton Towers that I do still enjoy, but just not as much as these ones. So I'm really excited to get into today's video. I'm kind of in a bit of a Alton Towers frenzy right now. I'm kind of getting a bit excited because I am visiting Towers again next month. It's going to be my first time visiting in a very long time because I live so far away, but I'm really looking forward to my trip. I'm going to be going during Scarefest, which is going to be even more fun because I've never been to Scarefest before. So yeah, on that note, if you guys do go on to enjoy this video, I've got lots of new content coming over the month of October, including my Alton Tower trip, which will be the first time Tom, who's a long-standing guest on this channel, he's having his first experience with Alton Towers and going for the first time, so that's going to be a really exciting trip to film. On top of that, I'm also going to Portaventura World over in Salou, also in October for my first time, which is also, again, going to be very exciting. And of course, I am also covering the Fright Nights construction updates, and also when Fright Nights rolls around, I'll also cover that. So if any of that does sound like a bit of you, definitely think about sticking around and joining the club. So without further ado guys, I'm not going to waste any more time. I think it's time to move into number 5. Okay then, so at my number 5 slot, I am going to have the Smiler. Now, this is a very interesting ride to me because there's a very conflicting argument that always goes on in my head about how to kind of perceive it. Not in the way that I think it's a bad ride, but just there's a lot of pitfalls to it that sometimes outweigh the good, but also the good also sometimes out trumps the bad. So I am putting it at my number 5 spot. The first of those kind of grievances I do have with the Smiler, as much as I love it to bits, is it's a very rough coaster. I don't know if it's just me, but all of the Gersteiler coasters I have ridden, which would be 2 Eurofighters and 1 Infinity coaster, of course saw the ride over at Thorpe Park, that's a Eurofighter. I've also ridden the Rage over at Adventure Island, again another Eurofighter, and then the Smiler is of course a Gersteiler Infinity coaster. The main thing in common with all 3 of these rides is that they're very uncomfortable and very rough. Now this may not be something that's Gersteiler's problem, this might just be the way that you know, they've been built over at these parks, but it is kind of a bit of a running theme and it doesn't really stop at the Smiler either. Don't get me wrong, I do think it's a lot better than the Eurofighters. I much more enjoy the Infinity coaster that I've ridden, which obviously is the Smiler, over those Eurofighters. But yeah, it just isn't as comfortable as I'd like it to be. However, that being said, I do absolutely adore the theming on this coaster, and I would go as far to say it's one of the best themed in the country. Not only because I think the story's really cool, I also just think it fits in really well with X-Sector. The music is an absolute banger, and on top of that, of course, you have the Marmalizer, which is the big spider centerpiece that you kind of weave throughout the Smilers. Ooh. Oh, it's not my light over there. Throughout the Smilers kind of, you know, ride. And it's not only interesting because it's a cool thing to look at, but you also learn quite a bit about the Marmalizer as you're walking around X-Sector itself. You can kind of start learning what each individual part of the Marmalizer does, and you can see these visually represented, you know, on the actual theming structure itself, and it's a really fun experience to kind of re-ride it, and as you're going around and think, oh, that's that part of the Marmalizer, that does this does that. I think it's a really enjoyable experience, and it is just held back a tiny little bit by the actual ride itself, but I still absolutely love it. And that's of course not to mention the fact that it is the world's first 14 looping roller coaster. I don't know if the record's been broken yet, it probably has somewhere, but it's just a really interesting and unique coaster, and I do think it packs a good punch and is still enjoyable regardless of its shortcomings. Okay then, so at my number 4 spot, I have the wonderful Nemesis Reborn. Now this probably wouldn't have been where it is on the list without the kind of you know, re-theme and re-tracking that it's had over the last couple of years, but yeah, I did get to experience Nemesis Reborn for the first time you know, after its refurbishment last year, and was absolutely blown away by it. Now there are still a few shortcomings with the coaster itself, but I think a lot of them that I had prior to the update you know, have been ironed out now, so it's really not a concern of mine. We're kind of getting into the rides now that I do just genuinely love without any fault whatsoever. And yeah, this is definitely not an exception. I absolutely love the theming of Nemesis. I always have, even since even before the retrack, sorry. You know, I think it's such an interesting kind of story, and I'm really happy that they've kind of really focused on the story of Nemesis, reopening Subterra, you know, redoing what they did with Nemesis, and then of course opening the Toxicator. It's absolutely fantastic to see that everything is kind of starting to come together with this area now, and has had an absolute glow up after the retheme. So yeah, that's a main part of it. Aside from that, it's just an absolute banger, isn't it? I just absolutely love the layout of this coaster, and considering, you know, this was built in the 90s and was kind of the pioneer of a lot of the large-scale roller coasters we know and love today, it's just absolutely incredible. It holds up and it's aged like fine wine, especially with the retrack. And yeah, of course, it's a wonderful John Wardley creation, one of his earliest creations as well, and it still packs a punch nowadays. So yeah, I absolutely adore this ride. The merchandise, you know, the theming, the soundtrack. Again, Alton Towers just don't miss with their soundtracks. It's wild. But yeah, it is an absolutely fantastic coaster, and I urge anyone going to Alton Towers to ride it as soon as possible, because I do genuinely think, especially with everything that's happened to it over the last couple of years, it's definitely a world-class roller coaster. Coming in at number 3, we have Wicker Man. This is just, I have so many fond memories of Wicker Man, not only riding it for the first time way back in 2018, but also just kind of following its construction, because this was the first roller coaster I kind of followed the construction of from beginning to end, and watching it open and going to it and riding it for the first time within opening year. And that'll always be a memory I cherish really like closely. I absolutely adore Wicker Man, and it always gets me really nostalgic when I look back at a lot of the old kind of promotional material for it. But beyond nostalgia, this is still an absolutely fantastic ride. Some can argue that it's carried by the theming, but I think that is, you know, whilst it's a valid point, it also isn't necessarily the case. I think this ride is really unassuming when you kind of look at the actual layout itself. It is a family coaster, and it will always be a family coaster. That's not going to change. But the actual layout is really thrilling. I think you get some really nice airtime. There's some great moments of speed in there. And of course, you pass through that giant Wicker Man statue. Shout out to Big Bob. 3 times throughout the ride, and each time it's a really nice head chopper moment. And when it works, of course, the fire effects are also absolutely top tier. Now, the actual theming, of course, does carry this ride, I will admit, but it is such good theming and such a good story that I just honestly can excuse it and make excuses for it for days, because I think it's such a unique theme. It's not your typical sci-fi, it's not your typical fantasy or this, that, the other. It's very much its own thing, and this cult-like atmosphere, it's just absolutely masterfully done. When you're walking through the queue line, you've got that awesome Score soundtrack, you know, kind of blaring around. You know, the architecture and the layout of the area had been really well done, you know, especially considering it was on a fairly low budget compared to a lot of kind of big world-class coasters. And I think whatever could have gone wrong didn't really go wrong for me in this. It's a little bit rough sometimes, but I would say overall, I absolutely love the experience, and I wouldn't change anything for the world. Okay then, so coming into the last roller coaster on this list, which isn't going to be a number 1, I have Oblivion. Now this will always be my favourite roller coaster at Alton Towers. Of course, I love all of them equally, but I'm a massive fan of the short and sweet coasters like Stealth. You know, I like that kind of burst of adrenaline and then kind of the ride's over. You know, there's a lot of pitfalls that this falls into, I'm going to admit, but this is very biased from me, this one, because it is just my personal favourite. You know, I think the actual theming, again, it's really cool, but it is kind of a bit outdated now. Obviously, this was built way back in the early 2000s, or late, I know it was the late 90s, I'm sure it was the late 90s. Someone correct me in the comments, I'm sure I've said something wrong there. But yeah, that kind of shows, and like Nemesis, it kind of started to wear off a little bit, but I do still absolutely love the soundtrack, and I do enjoy walking around the queue line. I think there's some really unique elements. I do just think it needs a bit of TLC and a bit of a facelift, and of course the actual drop itself is one of the coolest things in the world. Like, I absolutely love it. It's part of the reason I'm itching to go over to Busch Gardens, of course, to ride SheiKra. That looks absolutely incredible. I'd love to get on more dive coasters, but yeah, the one we've got in the UK ain't half bad, and it'll always be my favourite roller coaster here. So as far as it goes, I absolutely love the experience, and it's going to be very hard to beat for me at Alton Towers at least. But there is one ride that I will always hold at the tippy top from forever, like just rides in general, not even talking coasters here. Hex Legend of the Towers is my favourite ride that I've been on personally. Of course, I haven't done as much as I'm sure some other people have done, but in the UK right now, it is my absolute favourite, not only dark ride, but ride in general. There's so many things to say about this ride, you know. I know it's not the most reliable thing in the world. It may even be closed at the moment. I'm not sure I'm even going to be able to get on it when I go to Towers in a few weeks. But when you do that experience, man, it is just like nothing else you can get in the UK. There's kind of a lot of contributing factors of why it's so strong, because ultimately it is just the Vekoma Madhouse. And we've also got 2 of those in the UK now with Haunted House Monster Party. Is that what it's called? I think over at Legoland. But yeah, this is definitely the better of the 2. Not only, you know, just because I enjoy it more and the story's better, but I do think that the integral part of what makes Hex really powerful is its ties to the Alton Towers themselves, and of course the Alton town folklore and urban legend. You know, it kind of centres around this real life urban legend of the Earl of Shrewsbury, and of course the witch that puts the curse on him, that every time a branch from the tree falls, a member of his family will suddenly die, leading to the infamous chained oak, which you can actually go and visit, and I do really want to go and visit in a few weeks while I go on my trip to Alton Towers. You know, it's such an interesting story, and I love the story itself anyway, and to kind of weave that kind of real urban legend into this and then add that little bit to the end and goes, but that story wasn't over there. I think that's absolutely genius, and it really cements itself as such an immersive attraction because of that. Not only that, but of course the way they extended the towers out and built the ride within it really fits in well. You wouldn't tell that this is kind of an extension away from the towers, you know, and the exit as you come out into the middle of the courtyard is absolutely incredible, and the fact that you feel you've been inside the towers and you'll have that real historical connection there just makes this ride infinitely you know, re-rideable and just an absolutely incredible experience. And that's not even just talking about the ride itself, because the ride system itself I've always loved. I love a Vekoma Madhouse, and I think Hex does it really well. You know, the flipped room when you see kind of the face lit up, it's just an absolutely like incredible experience to go through. And the fact that the soundtrack again is an absolute banger. This will always be, as long as I can live, probably will be my favourite soundtrack within the UK in terms of theme park rides. I absolutely love it. I have it on repeat on my playlist quite a lot since they put it on Apple Music and stuff. So yeah, it will always kind of stay in my heart as one of my favourite things about the UK theme park industry. And the fact it was built so long ago is a real testament to, you know, how inventive and creative the Merlin, I don't even know if it was Merlin, I don't even think it was, it may have even been Two Swords at the time, but regardless, the amount of effort whoever made that ride put into it will just forever make it, you know, re-rideable. And they've obviously recently given it a facelift, which is also really nice to see, whilst also keeping intact a lot of that original creative vision, which is always appreciated. So yeah, that is going to be the end of my list today, guys. I hope you did enjoy the video. Definitely let me know down in the comments below, what are your top 5 Alton Towers rides? I'd absolutely love to hear your opinion, because my opinion is not right, it is just my opinion, so I'd love to hear what you guys think. Also, like I said, if you did go on to enjoy it, make sure to like and subscribe, and yeah, turn on notifications for that awesome October content I've got coming up. I'm really excited to film a lot of it, and I'm going to have so many new experiences which I'm really excited about. So yeah, I'm going to stop rambling now, guys. I hope you did enjoy it, and yeah, I hope you have a brilliant rest of your day, and I'll see you guys in the next video. See ya.